Hi everyone. Welcome to the third game of the Canada Day Open. I was coming off 2 losses in this tournament, and I was definitely feeling the stress. The previous tournament, the one before this, the Karis Memorial, I started with 3 wins, 1 draw. So starting off with 2 losses was a little bit of a reality check for me. As I was playing in a higher section, I was confident with my chess, and I was getting good positions in the games and then just throwing them away. Especially last game, I had something, I believe it was a +4 advantage at one point and ended up losing. So I was feeling a little bit dejected. But this game, I had white. I was facing quite the low-rated opponent. Or he had also lost both of his first two games. And we were chatting before this, and we were just talking about how, yeah, this isn't really our tournament, it's not going great. But he was very nice, and we just decided to play a game. So I played my normal rate T opening, and he played d5, like everyone seems to be doing. I played d4, and then he surprised me and played knight c6. And this is the Chigorin defense. It's something that I actually play sometimes, and I've studied some of the theory. But normally, when you go into knight f3 and knight c6 with d4, d5, people just don't know what they're doing, and they're just mimicking. And the Chigorin defense, it's very, very different than the normal d4, d5 positions, because you normally have c4 and c5, or even c6. But the knight blocks the pawn, and the ideas are very non-standard. They're very different attacking ideas, and they don't really have too much in common with the normal d4, d5 positions, so people don't usually know how to play them. And the way to punish this, I'm trying to get rid of the arrows. The way to punish this is to play c4. Because if they just take, then you can just play knight c3, you can play d5 right away, the knight has to go back, and you can play e4, retake this pawn. Even if they play e6, you can just take on c4, or even play knight c3 and recapture the queen. Queen takes, you're threatening here, bishop has to come to d6, and you take on c4, and you have a good position. I mean, look at your development compared to black. This bishop is stuck defending this pawn. It's pretty good. So basically with the Chigorin defense, if people don't play it properly, they fall into a worse position right away. And this is what happened. My opponent played knight f6. What you have to do in this position is play bishop to g4. And then if c captures on d4, you don't take back with the queen, because this runs into knight c3, and then the avalanche of e4, d5 comes. What you do is you take on f3, because if I take here, then the bishop drops back, and the material is equal, and my opponent actually has a very good position. But after bishop g4 and takes, you take. The main move is g captures on f3, queen takes. You cannot play e4 right away, because then you lose your center pawn. So you have to play e3 first, and then you prepare this avalanche of pawns. And it's still good for white, but this is the best way to go for black. After knight f6, this is pretty much losing for a grandmaster level, I'd say, because it's already +2 for white, because after you take on d5, no matter what takes back, if the queen takes, I play knight c3, the queen has to drop back, and then I get an e4, and I'm going to get a tempo on one of these knights. And if he takes with a knight, it's even better, because e4, the knight drops back, I play d5. Okay, after d5, you cannot take the knight immediately, because then there's queen takes, king takes, and knight forks. But after knight takes, you just play bishop g2, apparently. And even if the knight goes back, you still win the knight. Okay. I had forgotten that line from somewhere. Okay, but yeah, after d5, the knight usually has to drop back, and then you can just develop normally. Even after e6, you just pin the knight, and you have a very good position. You can see you're way up in development. What happened in the game was my opponent took, I played knight c3, I had to drop back, and I got an e4, and wow, my position is fantastic, right? I have this huge center, You basically have to play e6 in this position to prevent d5, because d5 is just so powerful. It's still +2 for white though. After a3, preventing the natural development of this bishop, because it really only has this square, because if it goes to d6, then there's a center fork. So he's forced to play a little bit of a waiting move. He played a6, preventing the natural development of my bishop. What I should play here is bishop d3, because he doesn't win this pawn in the middle, because I can take the knight back, and if queen takes, there's a discover check and you win the queen. But there's really no extra way for him to attack this pawn after I play bishop d3, and this is an active square, and it can't be attacked by the knight, which is why a3 is useful, and it defends this pawn and some other lines. So I should have played bishop d3. Instead I played bishop e2, which is still fine. I'm still +2 up right now. And he played g6, which is a little bit of a weird move, I thought. And now the devil on my shoulder started speaking to me. And I started looking at these dark squared weaknesses, and I abandoned all the traditional d4, d5, or d4 Ray-T positional ideas. For now, I just castled as the devil still continued to talk away on my shoulder. He played bishop g7, which is natural because he played bishop g6. And here is where I started straying a little bit off course, and I played e5. Oh, pardon me. And this move at first looks good because it gets a tempo on the knight. The knight has to move. But the problem is, this pawn on d4 is very weak now. It can't be defended by any e or c pawns. The e pawn is advanced. There is no c pawn. And what I'd love for him to do is take on c3. I take back with the b pawn. This, and then, okay, so let's say I play a nothing move. If he takes, this is great because his bishop is completely stopped by this pawn wall here. Even if he gets in c5 after this knight moves, if he takes, I take back. This pawn is weak, but this bishop is terrible. So I would have left for that to happen. But my pawn, he did not take on c3, so my backwards pawn on d4 remains weak for the rest of the game. And this was my idea here. I played bishop g5, and I was trying to take advantage of these dark squared weaknesses. So if the queen moves, for example, then the follow-up knight to e4 is very strong because this f6 pawn, or this f6 square, is just so weak. And it's very hard for him to castle, because let's say he castles in this position. Pardon me. I can, threaten all sorts of forks. Now the king and the queen are on a knight fork. So this would have been good. The dark squares are like Swiss cheese right now. My dark squared bishop is very strong. Even after something like, let's say I do a nothing move. If he plays h6, even bishop h4, g5, bishop g3, his king is just so weak. And there will probably be some sacrifices on g5 in the future. But this didn't happen. After I played bishop g5, he played the very sensible knight back to e7. And even though I've abandoned the traditional d4 positional ideas, my advantage is still +2 right now. But in order to keep it at +2, I have to not rush the agenda and play some calm move like rook to c1 or rook to e1 or something. But I played knight e4 too early, so I'm still going after this f6 square, but now I give him time for h6. And this is one of the moves I was calculating. I was looking at some bishop f6 ideas. This doesn't work though because he can, I believe, just play knight to g8, and there's no way to defend this pawn. And even though he's blocking his castling for the time being, and his dark squares will be a little weak, I don't have a dark squared bishop anymore. So he's kind of solved all those problems. Even after something like knight e5, he just takes back the pawn here. And now if I play rook c1, the position is just equal. And he can actually just castle safely now. And I'm still stuck with this weak, now it's isolated, weak pawn in the center. And he will build up some attack on it. and you can blockade it. Oops, sorry, you can blockade it with a knight, so I can't trade it off. And I haven't really gained anything. Oops, sorry. But what happened is I retreated back to h4 and he played g5, and I really wanted to sacrifice a knight on g5, but I determined that it does not work because of bishop h6, and I'm basically, if I move the bishop back, then he just starts developing normally. Pardon me, and he can start castling queenside. That was a long yawn. He can move his pieces and castle queenside, and my king is actually just very open. He can break it open, break up the position with f6 and chip away at my center. That was the wrong button. But I didn't sacrifice, I just played back to bishop to g3. And I realized, okay, where's my advantage gone? My position was great, but after knight to f5, what am I doing? I mean, he is going to get the bishop pair. His king is still weak. His king side is still weak. Pardon me. His king side is still weak, but the dark squares aren't nearly as weak as they were before. And here I played just the weirdest, useless move you'll ever see, which is bishop c4. And I was thinking maybe I take, he takes back with the queen, and I have some knight f6. I really don't know what I was thinking. I just wanted to move the bishop, but it's just a nothing move. And something like g4. Oh no, you know, I played bishop somewhere because I was anticipating g4. My knight has to move, and then the pawn is. Nope, I still don't know what I was thinking with bishop c4. Bishop c4 is just such an odd move, and it's a bad move. And now the position is just drawn again. And here he played knight takes on g3. And I actually have a plus 1.5 advantage if I just take back with the h-pawn, because there's no attack here with g4. My king is safe. His king is still ripped wide open. His best is knight b6. I can just drop the bishop back to a2, play b5, rook c1, build up an attack on this pawn, and my position is great. But I just completely missed the fork on e3, and I took with the f-pawn. And I was so upset. I was very flustered after this move, and I just wanted to disappear and not play chess anymore, which is how I was feeling for this entire tournament. And this was really the icing on the cake. But the funny thing is, if I play queen to d3, knight takes, rook takes, my position is actually, it's plus 0.5 or minus 0.5 for black, because his f7 pawn is so weak he can't castle queenside, and I still have chances. But as what normally happens when you make one mistake, there follows the second mistake, and queen to b3, which looks somewhat promising. Once he takes on f1, I'll play rook takes on f1. This knight will move. I'll have some attack on f7. So the idea was there, but after he takes, he plays the very nice move b5, and I just have to drop my bishop back. I lose this pressure on f7, and here he he missed the opportunity to play g4. And basically, if I move my knight, then queen captures on d4 comes a check. I move my king, and then there's queen captures on e5, and I'm just down too much material in this position. But with bishop b7, he actually allowed me he gave me a chance back into the game if I play h3, preventing g4. Because there isn't too much for him now. It's actually minus 0.3. Even after something like bishop d5, I can just drop the queen back to c2 or c3, and I'll play maybe b4, move the rook to c1, attack this pawn. So I'm down the exchange, but my king is much safer than his. I'll maybe tuck it away on h2, and his dark sword bishop doesn't have a good way of accessing it. So if I kept my composure and played h3 here, I would have still had a chance, but I played a4, and then stuff started spiraling. I played knight a4, and I actually just lose a piece now because bishop takes on e4. If I recapture, then there's queen takes on d4, king h1, and he wins the piece on e4. So after bishop captures on e4, I just resigned the game, and this was a painful one. This was my third loss in a row after I had a position in the opening which I knew was very good, which I knew was about +3 for white. And I'm not too impressed to say it, but after this game I did withdraw from the tournament. I was having a very hard time mentally staying focused. As I mentioned, I had stomach problems as well, and all in all, I wasn't having a good time. I was stressed more than I've ever been when playing chess, and I didn't think it was wise to carry on playing, trying to gain back my rating points that I had lost, or trying to gain back some dignity or anything. I didn't think it was worth it. And I talked with my parents because I needed a ride home, and I was talking with them, and they agreed that it was probably for the best that I withdrew. And I was very disappointed, to say the least, because chess is a big part of my life, and I paid money to be in this tournament. I trained hard to be in this tournament. So to go out after 3 losses and to be, well, it's too drastic to stay struggling with mental health, because I was just very sad. I wasn't having bad thoughts or anything. I didn't want to play chess anymore. I wanted to keep playing because I wanted to play better. I felt embarrassed because of how bad I was playing, but I didn't think it was wise to continue on. So I think this is a good lesson as well for any younger chess players or older chess players out there who are dealing with stress and not performing well in tournaments, that it's sometimes okay to take a step back and, in such a case like this, maybe withdraw from a tournament, maybe recuperate, play your next tournament, and just prepare for the future. And that's what I've done, because after this tournament I haven't played in a tournament in about a year, and I've been feeling a lot better. I've been training privately by myself and working on openings. I've even purchased some chess books finally, and I'm feeling ready for come next summer to actually participate in another tournament. And the relief really hit me when I was taking the bus home and I realized I wasn't too sad about withdrawing. I knew I was going to lose a lot of rating points, but I think I felt mature enough to put mental health above something ephemeral and physical, material like chess rating points. So this was not the nicest game I've ever played, but the most important game I've ever played, because it taught me that I was autonomous enough to prioritize happiness and mental health over a chess game. So yeah, this is the last tournament game I'll post for a while, because this was the last game of the Canada Day Open. It was supposed to be 6 games. I only managed to play half. I did lose about 125 rating points after this game, and I will maybe play in a lower section next tournament and just build up my chess rating again. And yeah, so that's the end of this tournament. That's the end of my videos for a while. Hopefully you've learned something, not just through chess, but also through chess psychology and your own well-being when playing chess, because this game is hard, man. Chess is not for the faint of heart, and this game really showed that to me. So thank you for sticking through this long-winded explanation of why I withdrew from the tournament, if you have, and thank you for watching any other of my videos. I really do appreciate it, and I have a great time making these, and I hope you have a great time watching them. So thank you. That's all for today.